I've got my hands on the Canon RF 50mm f1.2 lens, so in this video I'm going to share with you the pros and the cons that could help you decide if it's a good lens for your Canon EOS R or EOS RP. This is my opinion only, and if you're already using this lens and you have other pros and cons to share, please leave them in the comments below. Okay, so one of the pros of this lens is this ring controller. The 50mm f1.2 is a fixed lens, so you only have two rings. One is for the manual focus, and the second one is for this customizable ring controller that allows you to assign the ISO, the aperture, the shutter speed, or the exposure compensation. I would personally keep it on the ISO, but this is a personal preference because it's much easier for me to use the hand that is already holding the lens to rotate this ring and change the settings than pressing 2 or 3 buttons on the camera. Keep in mind that on RF zoom lens, you'll have 3 rings: the zoom, the focus ring, and the customizable ring. Another pro of this lens is the weather sealing that allows you to use it in the rain. It's protected against dust and moisture. And this is typically an advantage of the L series lenses because yes, this lens has the red ring on it. So if you're using it on the beach, in the desert, in the rain, while snowing, at high or low temperatures, the weather sealing is an awesome thing to have. Now, comparing the lens aperture to the 50 1.8 that has 7 blades or the 50 1.4 that has 8 blades, the new RF 50mm f1.2 has 10 blades that create a beautiful smooth blurred background, or bokeh, or bokeh. How do you pronounce this? And speaking about aperture, like I said, this lens can go down to f1.2, which is amazing for low light photography and videography. More light onto the sensor means very low noise on your images. And this lens combined with the EOS R or the EOS RP is a noise killer. I shot some photos outside during the day at f1.2 because I had the option to raise the shutter speed up to 1/6000th of a second or even more to obtain the perfect exposure. This high shutter speed is a huge advantage of the full-frame mirrorless cameras. I think the biggest pro of this 50mm lens is the sharpness. You cannot believe how sharp this lens is at f1.2 until you test it. Here are some examples. This was shot at f1.2, ISO 125, 1/60th of a second. Let's zoom in on the eye. Look how sharp it is. Let's see some more photos. This one was shot at f1.2, ISO 100. Zooming in, look at the sharpness. It's incredible. Moving on to some nature shots. f1.2, ISO 100, 1/8000th of a second. And let's zoom in, very, very sharp. This one was at f2 and ISO 100. I like it as well, and again, if I zoom in here, the sharpness is again amazing. This one is my favorites due to the beautiful blurred background. I shot this at f1.8, and look at the details on the leaf. On a scale from 1 to 10, the sharpness for me is at 10. And the final one, a portrait f1.6, ISO 400. Let's zoom in. And you can clearly see the sharpness of my eye, even through the glasses. Another thing that I consider a pro is the size of the filter that you need to put on this lens. It has to be a 77mm filter. And this is good because the bigger a filter is, the more expensive it gets. And 77mm is kinda affordable to me. And specifically, I mainly use ND filters because I'm recording videos outside to keep my shutter speed at a decent value. And if you want to understand why you need to use ND filters when filming outside, I put a link to one of my videos in the description so you can check that out. It will explain everything. Before speaking about the cons, I have one more thing that I consider one of the pros, and that is the USM, the ultrasonic motor. It's very quiet and it's very fast. This is important when shooting videos and you mounted, for example, a microphone onto the camera. You don't want to record the sound of the motor moving forward and backward, don't you? And now, the cons. Maybe you already guessed it, one of them is the price. At the moment, this new line of RF lenses is quite expensive, but in the same time it provides value. The sharpness and the overall quality of the images is a big step up for Canon. At the moment, in October 2019, the price of this lens is $2,300. But the price can always be subjective. It could be high to me, but acceptable to you. The second thing that I consider a small issue is the weight of the lens, which is 950 grams. It's not a very bad thing, but after you shoot continuously for 30 minutes, for example, your hands start to feel a bit tired. However, the weight of the lens has to do with the number of the glasses inside and their sizes, but also the materials used to create this amazing lens. The fact that this lens has no stabilization could be a problem for some of you who are shooting handheld videos, or if you want to photograph at slower shutter speeds in low light situations. I think that adding IS to this lens would transform it into the perfect lens of all time.